Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we are going to be cracking open a fictional chapter book. And this thing is anything but ordinary. We're talking nonlinear storytelling characters, breaking the fourth wall, hidden messages in the prose, the whole nine yards. So buckle up.
It's going to be a wild ride.
It is going to be a wild ride. I think that's a guarantee.
Yeah, it seems like the author really crafted this chaotic reading experience very deliberately, almost to mirror the themes of the book itself.
Yeah,
It's like being thrown into this whirlwind of ideas and then left to kind of pick up the pieces and try to assemble some semblance of meaning from it all.
exactly. And it's like the book itself is a trip through the hypersphere, which
Mm.
we'll get to in a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's this central concept of mysterious space with multiple rooms. And speaking of mind-altering experiences, there's this quote that I came across about LSD that really grabbed my attention. It says something like, "The clueless consciousness of the 21st century consumer is on LSD without knowing it."
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that quote really sets the stage for a lot of the book's exploration of reality versus illusion. And it kind of begs us to question, our perceptions and the limitations of human understanding.
Okay, so let's unpack this hypersphere a little bit. We keep coming back to this idea of a ninth room, a room that both exists and doesn't exist. What do you think the author is trying to convey here?
Yeah, it's really interesting. The ninth room is like this literary black hole. It's constantly shifting. It defies description. It could be a metaphor for the unknowable, the limits of human comprehension.
So are they trying to get us to understand the ninth room, or are they just trying to show us that it's impossible to understand the ninth room?
I think it's more about the latter.
Yeah.
It's sort of like trying to grasp smoke. The harder you try, the more it slips away. And the author uses all of this paradoxical language too, describing it as a doorway to nowhere and a room filled with the absence of things.
Right, so they're not just telling us about the ninth room, they're actually using language itself to evoke this sense of mystery and impossibility.
Exactly. And it makes you, the reader, an active participant in constructing meaning. It's almost like the author's saying, hey, look at how easily your perception can be manipulated.
Oh, wow.
What else might you be misinterpreting in your own life?
That's a pretty powerful message embedded in the structure of the book itself.
Yeah.
So how about we move on to the characters that are navigating this very mind-boggling world?
Okay, sure. Yeah, let's start with Detective Jones. He's a classic hard-boiled detective trope, but he's dropped into these increasingly absurd situations that constantly subvert your
He's
expectations.
like Philip Marlowe trying to solve a crime in a Salvador Dali painting.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It really highlights that blend of familiar detective elements with the surreal and often comedic tone of the book. And it keeps you guessing at every turn.
Yeah, speaking of comedic, we can't forget the Sagacious King and the Puerile King, this father-son duo locked in this hilarious power struggle. That dad letter the Sagacious King sends is just classic.
It's gold. Their relationship is a gold mine for exploring themes of power and control. But, it's not done in a dry academic way. The author layers in all of this dark humor that makes even the most philosophical points surprisingly entertaining.
Yeah, you're right. The Puerile King's longing for transformation, his yearning to escape his father's shadow is almost tragic. But then the author undercuts it with these absurd situations. You know, like when the Puerile King tries to build this giant robot to overthrow his father and it just falls apart hilariously.
Exactly. It's this constant interplay between the serious and the absurd that makes this book so compelling. You're laughing one minute, and then you're forced to confront, a deeper philosophical question the next.
And then there's Bruce Jenner, whose journey through the hypersphere is, well, let's just say unconventional.
Yeah, this is where the book really starts to push boundaries. The author uses Jenner's retransition to explore identity in a way that some might find satirical or even offensive. But instead of shying away from the controversy, they lean into it, forcing us to confront our own discomfort.
It's like the author's holding up a funhouse mirror to our cultural anxieties about gender and identity, distorting them in ways that make us question our assumptions.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. The book isn't offering any easy answers or moral judgments. It's creating a space for reflection, even if that reflection is uncomfortable at times.
Right. It's about prompting a discussion, challenging the reader to grapple with these complex issues.
Exactly. And speaking of complex issues, we can't forget the unexpected appearance of Donald Trump entangled in the mysteries of the hypersphere.
Yeah, who would have thought? It's like the author ripped a page from real-world headlines and just threw it into this surreal fictional world.
And this blurring of reality and fiction adds another layer to the book's exploration of truth and perception. It makes you wonder what's real, what's imagined, and how much of our reality is shaped by external forces like media or politics.
It's almost like the author's saying we're all living in our own hyperspheres, constantly bombarded with information and narratives that distort our understanding of the world.
That's an insightful observation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like the author is challenging us to break free from those constraints, to question what we're told and to seek out our own truths. But it's not presented as a simple solution. It's messy, it's confusing, and it forces us to confront the fact that there may not be any easy answers. It's pretty amazing how they weave these really complex ideas into this narrative that's so captivating. You mentioned the humor, but it's the way it's juxtaposed with these kind of unsettling moments of violence or even sexuality that makes you pay attention.
Yeah, it's not just shock value for shock value's sake.
Right.
Those shifts in tone, they mirror the unpredictable nature of the hypersphere itself. Keeps you on edge, constantly questioning what's coming next.
Absolutely. It's like the author saying, don't get too comfortable. Just when you think you've got things figured out, I'm going to pull the rug out from under you.
Yeah, and they do it brilliantly. There's that scene where Detective Jones is interrogating a suspect.
Yeah.
And it starts out like this very classic film noir exchange.
Yeah.
But then it devolves into this absurd philosophical debate about the nature of reality.
I know that part.
Yeah, it's both hilarious and thought-provoking.
Yeah, that's a great example. I mean, the author blends genres so seamlessly that it creates this unique reading experience that defies categorization. It's part detective novel, part philosophical treatise, part psychedelic trip.
Right. And that brings us back to those overarching themes that the book really tackles: reality versus illusion, identity and transformation, the struggle for power and control.
Yeah, and it's remarkable how those themes are woven into the fabric of the story, not just explicitly stated, but really embodied in the characters' actions and interactions.
Right.
We see that struggle for power between the sagacious king and the puerile king, but it's also mirrored in so many other relationships throughout the book.
It's like they're saying that these power dynamics are everywhere, from the personal to the political.
Yeah.
And the hypersphere becomes this symbolic battleground where these struggles play out.
Precisely. And the way that the characters navigate this battleground, the choices they make reveal a lot about their values and motivations. For example, Bruce Jenner's retransition. It isn't just about personal identity. It's a subversive act of rebellion against societal norms and expectations.
You know what's interesting about Bruce Jenner's storyline is that it doesn't offer this neat and tidy resolution. It's messy, it's complicated, and it leaves you with more questions than answers.
Yeah, that's a hallmark of this book. It avoids easy answers or moral judgments. Instead, it presents these complex scenarios and invites the reader to wrestle with the implications. It's almost like the author is saying, I'm not going to tell you what to think. I'm going to give you the tools to think for yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate that approach. It respects the reader's intelligence and challenges them to engage with the material on a deeper level.
Absolutely. And that engagement is key. This isn't a book that you can just passively consume. It demands your attention. It provokes your thoughts, and it stays with you long after you finish reading.
You find yourself pondering those characters, the themes, those bizarre images the author conjures up.
Right.
It's like this puzzle box that you keep wanting to unlock.
Yeah, and just when you think you've found a solution, another piece of the puzzle emerges, challenging your assumptions and forcing you to reassess everything you thought you knew.
It's like a literary hall of mirrors.
Yeah.
Reflecting our own biases and preconceptions right back at us.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so intellectually stimulating. It's not about arriving at a definitive answer. It's about the journey of exploration, the process of questioning and challenging our own perceptions.
Yeah, and I think that's something we could all benefit from, especially in today's world, where we're constantly bombarded with information and opinions.
Absolutely.
And this book really encourages us to slow down, to think critically, and to form our own conclusions.
And to do so with a sense of humor and a healthy dose of skepticism.
Right.
After all, the author constantly reminds us that reality is a slippery concept, and what we perceive as truth is often just an illusion.
Okay, so speaking of illusions, let's circle back to Donald Trump's role in all of this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bold move for the author to insert a real-life figure like Trump into this fictional world.
It is a bold move, but it's brilliant. By blurring the lines between reality and fiction, the author is highlighting the constructed nature of our own perceptions. They're essentially asking, how much of what you believe about Donald Trump is based on reality, and how much is shaped by media narratives and political spin?
Yeah. It's a question worth considering given the current political climate.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just Trump. It makes you think about how easily we can be manipulated by information, especially in the age of social media and 24-hour news cycles.
Right, we're constantly bombarded with these narratives that shape our understanding of the world.
Exactly.
And this book serves as a really powerful reminder to be very discerning consumers of information.
Yeah, it's almost like the author is giving us this crash course in media literacy and saying, hey, question everything you see and hear. Exactly. And they do it in such an entertaining and intellectually stimulating way. You know, you're laughing one minute and then questioning the very fabric of reality the next.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the themes and the characters,
Yeah.
but I want to circle back to this idea of the hypersphere. It's such a central concept, but it remains so elusive. What do you think the author's trying to achieve by leaving it so open to interpretation?
I think it goes back to the idea that the author isn't really interested in providing those easy answers. You know, the hypersphere is like this blank canvas that we can project our own fears and desires and interpretations onto. It becomes a reflection of our own internal landscapes.
That's an interesting way to put it. It's almost like they're inviting us to create our own meaning, to find our own way through this labyrinth of ideas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the ninth room, that elusive space that both exists and doesn't exist, represents the ultimate mystery, the unknowable that lies at the heart of the human experience. You know, it's a reminder that there are limits to our understanding. And that's okay. In fact, it's in that space of uncertainty and ambiguity that true discovery often occurs.
You know, it makes me think about how we often crave certainty in life. We want those clear-cut answers, those black and white solutions.
Yeah.
But this book reminds us that reality is rarely so simple.
Yeah.
It's messy, it's complex, it's full of contradictions.
And embracing that complexity, that willingness to sit with the unknown, can be both liberating and terrifying. It requires a certain level of trust in ourselves and in the journey, even when we can't see the destination.
Yeah, it's like the author is challenging us to let go of our need for control, to surrender to the chaos and see where it takes us.
And that surrender, that willingness to let go, can lead to unexpected insights and transformations. It's in those moments of vulnerability, when we're stripped of our illusions and preconceptions, that we're truly open to new possibilities.
So this deep dive has been a wild ride, just like the book itself. We've explored some really thought-provoking themes, dissected some complex characters, and we delved into the very fabric of reality.
And we've only scratched the surface. This is a book that demands to be re-examined and reinterpreted. Each reading reveals new layers of meaning, new connections, new questions.
It's a book that stays with you long after you finish reading it. It challenges your assumptions, it expands your horizons, and it leaves you with this really profound sense of the infinite possibilities that lie beyond the boundaries of our everyday experience.
So to our listeners, we'll leave you with this final thought-provoking question inspired by this extraordinary book. If the hypersphere represents the limits of human understanding, what lies beyond the ninth room, what mysteries are waiting to be uncovered within your own internal landscape? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep embracing the beautiful complexity of existence.